Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Monitor Podcast. I'm Rita Garwood, Editor-in-Chief of Monitor. Joining me today is Aaron Case. Aaron is President of TFS Solutions. Aaron, thanks for being on the podcast today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business?
Perfect. No, thanks for having me. Uh, TFS creates captive finance solutions and virtual F&I programs for OEMs, dealers, marketplaces. Our group's been around for 40 years and mainly in equipment financing as well as auto finance.
That's awesome. So I know that we've been talking about how your company has been utilizing AI. What initially sparked your interest in using AI, and were there certain business problems or bottlenecks or problems that you wanted to solve that got you started in the first place?
Yeah, it was a bit of a neat background on how we got into AI. We have an internal policy that we call our stupid policy rule. And we actually pay out bounties of anybody who can find a stupid policy in our workforce. And depending on how large it is in scale to the business, the bounties can scale up in size. And so what we found is it was really our frontline staff that would come forward and say, I have to do this same task every single day, all day. There needs to be some form of automation. And that really was the spark to look into our first foray into leveraging AI.
That's awesome. What were some of those first tasks that they brought to your attention?
Yeah, I mean, the first task was actually the very top of our funnel. And, we're looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of applications on a monthly basis. And depending on the partner we have, a lot of those applications can come in. It might be PDF, some might be in Microsoft Word in an email attachment. They're just a little bit messy. In the AI world, that's what we call unstructured documents. And so we needed to hire a fairly large team of people that would just ingest that data, map it into our system, and it was data entry. And over a while, that started to build up in cost, and it started to bog us down in the high season. So our first AI project was using products like Ocrolus to really ingest that unstructured data, map it into our system, and that removes any need for additional staff in the high season. Removes having our salespeople to wait on an analyst to enter in certain data. So that was our first project, and that allowed us to essentially eliminate that group. And I find AI is not necessarily about getting rid of people; it's just about scaling faster with the current staff you have. So we have been able to reallocate those people into different areas of the business that provide more value.
That's great. So what does it look like when you're, putting those documents into the system? Is it, the borrower or vendor is uploading the documents themselves? Is it like a self-service thing, or is there one point of contact on your team that's doing the uploading? How did the process change?
Yeah, so the new process that we use is we essentially have a web scrape hidden in behind our email. And so any email that comes from a list of our registered partners, the bot essentially goes into that email, pulls out the PDFs, pulls out the Word, reads through it, and then maps through. So if it's the borrower's business address, that's going to map through into our system into the borrower's business address. If it's the asset, the VIN number, the serial number, those are all going to pull into the system. So on a day-to-day basis, nobody sees it on our end. They can just rely that the task is being completed without a human.
That's awesome. And then how has that translated for, your clients? It sounds like you've, had a lot of improvements internally, but have there been visible, improvements from the client's point of view?
Yeah, I think in terms of turnaround time, it's success by 1,000 cuts. And so if we can save 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, maybe an hour down here, ultimately, our goal is to get back to partners always within 4 hours or less. Certain programs within certain asset classes, those might be 30 minutes or less. And so it allows us to keep our promise to our partners more often. So ultimately, it's going to lead to generally better customer NPS scores, as well as just better partner relationships, being a more reliable partner for our OEMs, dealers.
That's great. So beyond the documents that we just talked about, what are some other areas that came up that could be improved by the use of AI?
Yeah, so our business, so I said we build captive finance solutions and virtual F&I programs. We use a combination of our own capital as well as other people's capital. And so we lend a certain amount of our own capital that fits the box that we want to play in, but we understand we're not perfect for everybody. So we partner with other best in class lenders in the equipment finance space. What we've done is built out an algorithm where we know what our partners want to see in terms of industry, credit score, time in business, asset class. And when we take an application in, the system can then generate the best choice of where that application should go. So instead of having to hire and train kind of a junior credit analyst to make those decisions, we're able to route those systematically. So again, cutting down on turnaround time instead of a human spending 30 or 40 minutes combing through an application, the system can actually recommend the best choice for our sales team. Click a button that then routes through to that lender.
That's awesome. So it sounds like it helps you in terms of, selecting the right type of vendor for whatever the deal is. How about when it comes to underwriting? Have you done anything with AI there?
We're just starting on that project in terms of our underwriting of our own capital. Typically, the most dangerous area is lending your own capital, so that's where we've been the slowest. Our approach was starting with the lowest hanging fruit in the organization and working our way upward in terms of complexity. So that is a project that we're getting into right now, and it's just again looking at where AI can be smarter than a human. I'd say the most effective part that we've seen so far is leveraging AI as that second set of eyes. So uploading a large data set, having it maybe make a recommendation versus your chief risk officer to decide and see, is AI as smart as somebody with 40 years in the business? It might not be yet, but we know it is evolving there.
That's great. So how has the partners that are giving deals to, how have they responded to this? Has it improved your relationships with them? Has it improved like turnaround time?
Yeah, on the lender selection side, it's really valuable if you can feed a lender partner more of what they want to see. It improves your approval rate, improves your look to book, so their efficiency ratios they're much better off. You're not sending them a bunch of deals that they don't necessarily want to see, which ultimately leads back to the more efficient we can be with our partners, the better their pricing they're going to give us. We can then pass that on to the customer and hopefully book more business than our competition.
Great. So I know we had talked when we were planning this podcast about robotic process automation, which is a little bit different than AI, but it is involving automation. Can you talk about tasks that you've automated using that?
Yeah, definitely. And so if I look at robotic process automation combined with AI, I'd say I'm sure everyone that would listen to this podcast would know equipment finance, it's a lot of check, test, and verify. So it could be things like you get a set of docs, you check the ID to make sure Aaron Case is Aaron Case, the name matches up. You want to make sure the VIN on your invoice matches, the VIN that you're putting on your documents. Um, Bank statements is a great example. It takes a seasoned person to look through a set of banks to see if they've been doctored or altered or your fonts are mismatched. And so that's where we can leverage AI to do the scrape of is Aaron Case. And then the next piece of automation is rather than just verify, automating the next step to check the box and then generate the documents for you. So instead of, again, step by step of a human intervening, it's leveraging AI with automation just so AI can give you the check and then RPA can actually complete the task.
That's great. So when you've implemented tools like this, is this something that your team has developed internally, or are these you've partnered with, service providers in the industry? What's your tech stack look like there?
Generally, so the Travelers Group is a part owner in a technology company that's predominantly in auto finance. So we do have that capability in house for, I'd call it the basics. For anything AI related, we would go external to outside vendors. And generally, I find the people who are spending every day, spending dollars on R&D within AI, that's going to be your best choice. So our tech stack is it's a myriad of different providers.
That's good. So, when you have been going through all of these automation processes, have you discovered any places where a certain area really needed to have the human touch, where AI or automation just was not cutting it, and you needed to make sure that you had a little bit more, um, personal oversight?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two areas that definitely sales. I mean, sales is one thing that my personal opinion is AI is not going to be able to replicate at a certain time. There's a human touch. There's relationship management. There are a ton of tools out there. AI robotic calling where it sounds like a person dialing out, and if a question's too complicated, it transfers to an agent. Those are certain areas of the business where I think relationships are too important to outsource to a robot. So sales would be my first. And then on the credit and underwriting side, I do think a portion uh, can be leveraged, but depending on the credit spectrum that you play in, when we provide our own capital, we're a little bit, I'd call it just under prime down into non-prime. So there's a bit more art than science to the deal sometimes. So in AI's current state, I'd be more comfortable with a human having eyes on those versus AI. It's changing so fast. In 3 months, we could be in a totally different place. But I think for now, uh, a portion of underwriting and sales are, I think, better off with that human touch.
Yeah, agree for sure. So I know that whenever you're implementing something new, it's really important to kind of measure the progress that you're making. When you started implementing, AI and automation, were there certain KPIs that you were looking at along the way, and how did you measure the impact that these initiatives were having?
Yeah, so I mean, when I talk about the very top of the funnel, that ingestion of applications from our partners, uh, in a previous world, let's say it took on average 45 minutes, including queue times for an application to actually be received, uploaded in the system, and entered. With the use of AI and other technologies, that essentially goes to 60 seconds. So that team becomes redundant. So I think that was a great example of how quickly you could see the success of implementing these tools. Just people had to do a job before, and then they're no longer needed in that space. So we can grab those people again, reallocate them within the business into other areas where they can either drive revenue or help cut costs further.
So how have the people in your organization responded to that? Like, they've been used to doing the same thing over and over again, and now they're, being retrained into something new. I know in some cases people might welcome that. In other cases, they might really have been comfortable where they were. What has the feedback been like?
Yeah, I think we're very lucky, and we have a very young and dynamic organization. Um, we have a core philosophy called the easy principles, and so it's entrepreneurial, accountable, simplistic thinking, and youthful thinking. And so everybody that joins our organization really they have to embrace the idea of being entrepreneurs themselves, and so that means taking on projects themselves to improve their business function. And again, with everybody being quite young in our org, I think everyone's having a lot of fun. I know change management is always really difficult. Implementing new systems can be really difficult. You do need a champion. You need someone to drive it through. But again, that youthful energy has really helped us.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you have incentives for people to bring these, problems or bottlenecks or whatever, what have you, and get them solved too. So that definitely must be helpful.
Absolutely.
Have there been any surprising benefits, in terms of employee satisfaction or retention along the way during this journey that you found?
Yeah, definitely. One of my core principles for our sales team is I call it a one screen mentality. And so you should be able to complete all of your tasks you need to do your job on one screen. And so that might be pushing your deal through a system, seeing the decision back from credit, uploading any notes, as well as emailing your customer. And so I think that's a good example where if we can hire someone that doesn't have a ton of experience, but we can make their lives very easy, i.e., if they need to work off a laptop, if they're on the road for any reason, they can, they have no interruption in business. I think that really helps with retention overall of they don't come in, they don't need a ton of training. It's not super complicated to complete just an everyday task. So I think the easier we make it on our people, definitely retention's one thing we pride ourselves on. We've done really well with.
That's amazing. And that probably makes it a lot easier just to um, bring people on too. They can hit the ground running if it's if it's simple. Um, so can you just walk us through an example, maybe start to finish, of how technology has improved the borrower's experience when, using everything that you've implemented?
Yeah. So if you take, if I was to look at the auction business as an example, those are event driven auctions where, let's say tomorrow a customer wants to go buy and they have a certain asset that they want to purchase. If I was to go back 5 years ago and everything was pen to paper, not much automation, if a customer calls in, there's a good chance they're not going to get approved and have everything set up on time to purchase on that day. I think now with a high degree of automation, cutting out, again, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, we're able to turn those applications much quicker, get approvals in the hands of customers so they can go down and bid on an asset that they want to purchase same day, and we can win more business that way. Um, Same thing if a customer's on the road and a truck breaks down and they need to get a hold of us, and they need our help with insurance or anything else related to the finance process, being able to access that data much quicker can really help those customers out. And so again, it does drive back ultimately to your NPS scores. And typically, NPS scores in the banking and equipment finance world are quite low. It's not an NPS friendly world. I found we have been able to outpace the market pretty well with those.
Awesome. So what's next for you in this space? Are there other emerging technologies or trends that you're excited about? Are there other areas of the business that you're looking to improve with AI or automation?
Always looking to improve. That's the goal. So, any technology vendor that reaches out, I'll always take the time to see a demo, see what they have, understand what products are out there. Um, you know, I don't claim to be an AI expert. I'm just here to listen and learn. So I think what's next, we'll see who reaches out and who can kind of wow us, and then we can see how that's implemented in the business.
That's awesome. And then finally, let's say there's other companies in the industry that are looking to implement AI or automation. What advice would you give them? Where should they start? And what should they be aware of as they're starting the journey?
I would definitely understand the problem you're trying to solve before going out to any external vendor. I think anybody you talk to in technology, they've got salespeople that have targets and they're going to try and sell you something. So I think it's really important that you understand the business problem that you are trying to solve. Understand again that low hanging fruit of what are simple processes that we can go to fix, and then find a technology provider that has those tools. Um,
And in many cases, there's technology providers that, could have overlapping tools available. In your experience working with them, what really makes a company stand out if there's a variety of options available?
I think the ones that stand out best to me are the ones that take the time to understand your business and will go through, they'll look at your swim lanes of how your business operates. They'll understand the problems. And before trying to sell you something right outside the box, they just take that time to learn a little bit more. There are a lot of very large technology providers out there that have off the shelf products. And again, they've got quotas, so they're just going to throw those at you. And sometimes you'll end up buying something that isn't right for your business. And then you spend time, resources, money on something that isn't a fit, which is never fun. And it definitely doesn't help with credibility internally.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where that's happened, and how quickly do you think how quickly do you think you need to determine if the software that you purchased is not a good fit?
We've been fairly lucky in the sense that we haven't had to mothball any projects internally. But I think it does go back to understanding the problem. And that's not always just at an executive level, but going down to the ground floor, the frontline staff, and saying, what are their day to day issues? do they think this is a good idea? Getting buy-in through the whole org is really important before taking that next step.
It's so important. Is there anything else about your AI and automation journey that you think is important you'd like to talk about, or any final thoughts?
I think we covered off some really good stuff today. I think for anyone looking for a captive finance solution that's a marketplace or a dealer, don't hesitate to reach out. Or if anyone wants to learn more about how we've leveraged technology, I'm happy to have a chat with anybody.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for talking with me today, Erin. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rita.
Thanks.